الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي هدانا للإيمان والإسلام ولا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له له الحمد والنور وعلى كل شيء قدير. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اذكروا الله ذكرا كثيرا. The subject of the khutbah today is a continuation of what we were discussing last time. We're still dealing with the problem of our great grandparents. I hope you have not forgotten that last time we discussed, based on explicit Quranic quotations, the meaning of the robes or the garments of Adam and Eve. Let me just have a half a minute review. In Surah 20, verse 118, Allah guarantees Adam and Eve that in the garden they will not hunger nor go naked. The Quran is very modest. Talks of garments. Thus, they had a garment. And one interpretation, out of so many other possible ones, is that this I'm submitting as an interpretation, is that this was the garment of obedience. But obedience as a natural situation, as a natural state, just unthinking obedience. But in Surah 7, verse 27, we are told explicitly in the Quran that Satan tore off these garments. The very fact that they disobeyed Allah is the same, is equivalent to saying that these garments of obedience were taken off. They're equivalent, no? When they disobeyed, then the garments of disobedience, then the garments of obedience were taken off by Satan. And in Surah 7, 22, in Surah 20, 121, Adam and Eve covered themselves with garments which they made themselves. Man-made. Garments made of leaves of the garden. In 7:26, a few verses after 7:22, Allah tells the children of Adam, we give you a better garment, that of righteousness. Now, I would like to mention that in the text, this garment of righteousness is not given to Adam explicitly. It's given to the children of Adam, to mankind. And mankind and Adam sometimes coincide, because as you know, sometimes Allah speaks to Adam in the singular, sometimes he talks to both of them in the dual, and sometimes in the plural. Something which is very hard to express in English. Now, the reason why I say that Allah gives Adam and Eve the garments of righteousness, although it says of children of Adam, is because He gave words of revelation. He gave words of revelation to Adam and Eve. He was teaching them. And this to me, for all practical purposes, is the same also as giving them the garments of righteousness. Now, as you all know by now that the Jewish Bible is silent about the clothing that they have. That's why we have all of these movies, pictures of Adam and Eve happy running naked, happy before they're clothed and ashamed of themselves and so on. But there is something that's similar. Adam and Eve stitch leaves. They stitch it. Quran says they make also clothes of themselves. Then after this, Allah, after showing this nature of their disobedience, He made clothes or skins for them. And then He drives them out of the Garden of Eden. Alright, back to the Quran. When Adam and Eve disobeyed, or, but it's the same thing, when Satan tore off their garments of obedience, what happened? What immediately happened? And what happened later on? This is now, we're becoming very, very curious. In Surah 7, verse 27, Allah said that Satan removed their garments in order to show them their bodies. And it's very interesting, no? This is Ustad's translation, bodies. Other translators say shame, nakedness. And another translator says to show them their shameful parts. It is more explicit. Okay, now let's go to the problem of methodology. Here we have, I believe, allegories or masterlands involved. It's not something explicit like wudu. When Allah says, wash your faces, that's clear, wash your faces. However you do it, wash your faces. Wash your hands up to the elbow. Those are very clear. And Allah says so. There are verses that are clear. But masterlands, allegories are for people to reflect upon, to try to get messages, to draw implications, to draw ramifications. And as long as we do not use these masterlands to cast diversion of the memory of Allah, or as long as we don't use these masterlands to cause division among the ranks of the believers, which Allah wants us. There are people who use these allegories to cast division. As long as we use them to understand more the Quran, to increase our demand, to develop our understanding, I think we should not be afraid to try to get into the meaning, because as I said before, Allah presents these masterlands, these allegories, for men to reflect upon. And I hope I'm doing this for better understanding. The Quran is rich, so rich we can keep on getting more and more out of it. It's like a good orange. You keep on squeezing and squeezing, you can get as much orange juice as you want. Make marmalade out of it, and make glaze candies out of it, and still the orange remains as is. This is, I think, a miracle of the Quran. I don't know why I'm talking of food so early in the morning. Now, the question again, what was this clause? The crucial word here is saw'atun. That's the word, saw'at. This has been interpreted by some people within the Arabic context, not just when they translate in English. Ashamed, secret parts, hidden parts, bodies and so on. A very primitive meaning is that it refers to something that is covered. Okay, please, let's put our attention on that. It means something that is covered, something that is not shown, something that you are unaware of, unconscious of. Now take this word, bodies, translation of Ustad. This to me, or what one is unaware of, is factual or descriptive. Right? To say that a body is exposed, it's factual, or it attempts to be factual. if you say shameful parts, if you say shame, then you're now interpreting, right? You're putting a moral value. To say someone is naked, that's a fact. But to say that someone is showing his or her shameful parts, that is more than a fact. That is something that involves a fact coupled with a value judgment. You see, the person is naked and it's not good. These are two different. Now let's make that distinction. Those who say shameful parts, shame, are now putting a value judgment. And I suspect this comes because of influence of reading the Jewish Bible. And I'm glad Ustaz just says Bible. He didn't say a shameful body. Indeed, I'll go further and say, what is covered, what is hidden, what one is unaware of, is not necessarily something that is shameful. It only means it's something one is not conscious about. And thus, my method in this khutbah today is to try to accommodate, more or less within a general theory, this possible interpretation in a manner that would be intelligible, in a manner that would give credit to each and every one of these interpreters and so on. Inshallah. But first we must study a little closer the nature of the temptation posed by Satan. A temptation which brought about the disrobing of Adam and Eve. There are two forms of the statement of temptation. The first is in Surah 7, verse 20, and the second is in Surah 20, verse 120. Now, we have to go very careful. I beg your time, indulgence, and a little effort in concentration, because we have to use a little Arabic. In 7:20, the devil whispered. It's very interesting, the Arabic word, waswas. Huh? It's not really just whisper, because you can whisper a nice thing. You can tell someone, how are you? That's whispering. Or if you like cigarette, that's not, it's whisper, huh? But this waswas is an onomatopoeic word. It's a word which sounds like what you're doing. It's like when whisper also, waswas. It is something whispering in a sneaky, tempting way. And that's what Satan does. Whispering, tempting. He says, and I quote, "You, Lord, did not prohibit you from this tree except to prevent you from becoming angels," don't forget this, "or becoming immortal." All right? That's the first way the temptation is placed. And that is in chapter 7. I'll repeat. "The Lord did not prohibit you from this tree except to prevent you from becoming angels or becoming immortal." Okay. Now let's go to the second form of the temptation in Surah 20, verse 120. This is more dramatic. "But the devil whispered to him, saying," the word is waswas again, "O Adam, let me show you the tree of eternity and everlasting kingship." So, let me show you the tree of eternity and everlasting kingship. It seems there is a difference, no? But actually, it's very beautiful if we go to the Arabic. So please pay attention. In 7 to 7:20, when the devil is saying, Allah does not want you to become angels, the word is malakain. All right? Can you remember this? Malakain. And malakain, angels, two, huh? This malakain, two angels. The root is malakain, M-L-K, okay? Malaka, the verb is malaka, to hold something, power. Angels are called Malaik, and two angels, Malachim. Allah does not want you to become immortal. The word is Khalidin. Khalidin. Okay? Can you remember that? From Khalada, to endure, to subsist. The word Khalid is a common name. It means one who's always subsisting, persisting. That's the first temptation. Allah does not want you to become Malakay, MLK, and Allah does not want you to become immortals, Lam, Dal. K-H, D, and N. La, Da is the verb, the other one is Manaka. The second temptation, okay? Allah, shall I show you the tree of eternity? The tree of eternity is Khuldi. You see? K-H-L-D. You see how beautiful it is? And a kingdom, a kingship, mulki, M-L-K. You hear it now? How beautiful, huh? See, these are two verses in Quran. Doesn't want you to become angels, M-L-K. Doesn't want you to become immortals, K-H-L-D. And the second temptation says, shall I show the tree of K-H-L-D and a kingdom that will never perish, M-M-K, multi. Multi means kingship. This is a digression to show to you the beauty of the Quran, the craftsmanship. It appears in different forms, but there is always a parallelism. It's the same source, naturally, the same author, Allah himself. But anyhow, I'm sorry that I got to this literary exegesis. Let's go back to the temptation. The above temptation implies the following. First, that Adam and Eve were neither angels nor immortals, all right? Because why would you tempt them with something that they already have? When Satan says, Allah does not want you to become angels, doesn't want you to become immortal, it means from the beginning, they were neither angels nor immortals. A temptation makes sense if it offers you something that you want to have. So that's the first thing we must consider, in other words. From the moment of their creation, when they were created out of earth or dust or clay, they were already destined to live, to be sent to earth, and I may say to die on earth. We must accept that as an axiom in the Quran. The plan was, from the beginning, they were mortals made of earth, they will be sent to earth, and they will have to die on earth. Or not even say you cannot tempt them with immortality and so on. That's the first step. The second one, old man Satan deceived Adam and Eve. Why? Because after the age of the tree, they did not become immortal. They did not become angels, right? It's very important. And not only that, they still have to go to earth, according to the original plan, as vice versa. Number 3, Adam and Eve had, on account of this temptation, they were aspiring for something that they were not, and for which, I'm now submitting this, they were not ready for. In other words, they were not ready, they did not have the equipment or the instruction of how to become angels or how to become immortal. The fourth one is that death is not a punishment for the disobedient. No. Because they were destined to die from the beginning, right? So dying is not a punishment for disobedience. For from the very beginning, they were mortal. And the fifth is that what really happened was that they were they were untimely evicted from the garden. It's just like they were supposed to leave the garden, but in this case, they left a little bit early than that was planned. Although Allah knows this will happen. It's like a student who goes to college. He's supposed to stay 4 years or 6 years in college, depending on the degree. But if he flunks the first semester, then he's kicked out. But this is what happened to our great-grandparents. They were supposed to stay there for some time, I suppose, being taught more and trained, but they were kicked out a little bit or very much earlier. They flunked, in other words. They were supposed to stay there temporarily, but not, although they were meant to stay there temporarily, the idea was not to have them kick out like a first semester student who flunked. They were supposed to have stayed longer. Anyhow, when Adam and Eve did not get what they aspired to, when they did not become what they hoped for or wanted, they must have found out what they really were. And this is that they had bodies of flesh and blood, of earth, bodies limited by space-time coordinates, by space-time limitations. They realized that their bodies were of mortal stuff. See, they did not become immortal nor angels. Then they realized that their bodies were limited. They knew that they were mortal. The scales fell from their eyes. They realized that they were made out of bodies. And that, I think, I accept, quotation stands, they were aware of their bodies. Bodies that were opposed to rot. Bodies of blood. They realized they were deceived by Satan. They realized that they were vulnerable. They were in a precarious condition. They felt helpless. And more than ever, they needed Allah. All right? Aware of their bodies does not mean ashamed of their bodies. This is what I'm trying to say. Awareness of their bodies means that their bodies were limited. Neither this nor that, but mortal. It was going to decay. And so, now to accommodate the thinking of the other students of the Quran, I submit that if there was any shame at all, it was not so much shame of the body, but it was the shame for disobeying Allah. Alright? Allah had given them so much. Allah had given them food. Allah had given them clothing. Allah had warned them about Satan. They were not equal to the occasion. What existed now in their lives was a disharmony, a disequilibrium. Things were not what they were supposed to be. Things were not given their dues. It was, let's say, a world of square pegs and round holes all over. A disequilibrium. It was an atmosphere of living in a form of injustice brought by themselves to themselves. Things were not in their proper places. And as you all know, justice, one of the meaning of justice is putting things on the right position, giving things their proper due. And they were helpless, abandoned by their sincere advisor, at least that's what Satan claimed he was. Satan, there was no one to turn to except Allah. This was a This is a dramatic recognition of Allah as the Lord. And this act